All right, we're going to continue on with our starting a small business, starting a martial arts school question and answer session. I was going to do this on a live stream, but I had a series of questions, and I'm just going to combine them all in one video and release it. And then if there's more questions, you guys can always fire in questions as we go along, and I'll fit that into the rotation to answer the questions the best I can. So some of the questions, I had a few questions that were emailed to me, and I think I can just hit them all in this video at a reasonable time. So first question is student management software, needed or not needed? I say it's a nice thing to have, but not needed. Like for our business, when we first started, we tried a couple software
how about a web search for it?
Things, and they just didn't, they just weren't, we weren't getting the value out of them for the price that we was paying. So we just went back to simple, like pen and paper. And pen and paper's been working for a long time for martial arts schools and for gyms. Like, it's like, the irony is, like, I guess when you're old like me, I'll be 56 in a couple months, like, I remember life in the world before the internet came along, and before computers came along. So you can manage it all with pen and paper. You don't have to get some high price, robust software with all the bells and whistles. I mean, it's nice if that's your thing. For me, I'm just doing pen and paper. So when they come in, we just write their name on an old notebook, and that's how I look at attendance. And really, I only look at attendance like when I'm thinking like, hey, I haven't seen Stomp in a while. I wonder when the last time he came to class. Maybe I should call and check up, see if he's doing okay. Or like I don't look at attendance for any kind of promotions or anything like that. It's just like, no, it's like I watch your progress through jiu-jitsu, and it's like that's when I know you're ready for promotion. I don't go through and like say, oh, he needs to be at 100 classes before I consider him for this next promotion. I don't do that. But if that's your thing, there's software out there that can do it. It can do your billing. Our billing is, same thing. Pen and paper are like, hey, every month, Fred, his payments are due on the 1st. And on the 2nd, there's 3 or 4 other names, their payments are due on this day. And then on the 3rd, so many names. And, that's, we just keep track of it through pen and paper. And then for, our payments, we either take cash or take Square. Use Square, or they can Venmo stuff to us. Don't take checks. We learned the hard way on checks. People will bounce checks, and then when they bounce them, we still have to pay the fee to the bank, and then you're going back to the student. You're like, hey, your check bounced. And it's like, okay, we ain't doing checks no more. So we don't do checks. We just do an electronic pay, and you don't need an advanced software program for that. Like if you're using Square, I forgot what the percentage is, but they'll charge you some percent of every sale, and that's what we do. And then at the end of the year, Square sends me like a year-end report showing all the sales we made, and that's how I do my taxes. I just look at the Square report, and I'm like, okay, this was what we brought in addition to our bank statements, and it's like, it's valuable information. But no, you don't need some advanced school software. And there's some amazing software out there with very robust capabilities, but it's a nice to have, it's not a must have. So that's the answer to that question. Next question was, have you ever had to ask a student to leave for whatever reason? Absolutely. I've talked about it a few videos ago, like I had a student who got arrested for domestic violence, and he was already on probation for domestic violence against his previous wife, and turns out domestic violence is his thing. And so when I realized that, I was like, you can't train here no more. Like, you can go train someplace else. And yeah, he trained someplace else, and like I'm not willing to train bad people. So if it's revealed to me that you are a bad person, you know, like I don't do criminal background checks on every student that walks in. But if I find out, like, hey, you know, this isn't a good person, it's like, no, you know, it's like, you're out of here. So I've had to ask students to leave. That would be one example. Other examples is like I don't do mad enforcers. So if a student is brutalizing people or doing just dirty tactics, or just, you know, like they got bad hygiene, you know, like whatever, you know, that's against the school rules, and, you know, I'll bring it to their attention. Like, I won't sick nobody on them and be like, you know, whoop this dude up, teach him a lesson. It's like, nah, people don't pay me to do that to them. I'm not here to abuse people. I talk to them, and if they change their behavior, great. That's the goal. If they don't change their behavior, I let them know, hey, there's roughly 25 Brazilian Jiu Jitsu schools here in the city of San Antonio, give or take a few. You're gonna have to go find another one to train at. And, you know, they always have that strange look, because, you know, they think, oh, like, you know, like this is McDonald's, the customer's always right. And I'm like, well, if I ever show up in a clown outfit, you can be like, oh, the customer's always right. But until I do, nah, customer ain't always right. And yeah, I'll boot students, because a dangerous student or a student with a bad attitude will cost you money, because they'll drive other students away. Which I did a previous video on one of the reasons I don't do contracts. Like, I don't want anybody in here that don't want to be here. It's like, no, if you decide today I don't want to be here, I want you to go today. Like, I don't want you to be like, well, you know, I got another 6 months left on my contract, and since I'm paying, I might as well, you know, keep showing up. It's like, no, I don't want that negative vibe in my school. So yeah, I will ask students to leave. And you know, like I've had teenagers, and I have zero tolerance for them being disrespectful. Like, they're disrespectful to me. I'm like, hey, this ain't public high school, like, where, like, you know, we'll put up with that nonsense. It's like, no, we don't do that. Like, you're disrespectful to me, you're gone. Or to any of my instructors, it's like, nah, you're out of here. So yeah, I think, you know, it's not a pleasant thing to do, but sometimes, like, you just have to invite people to leave, because they're not going to fit into what you're doing. Matter of fact, it was funny. The next question is, how do I deal with business competition? And it's funny, like, I have a student, good friend of mine, Trey, and he had trained at 2 previous gyms in town before he came to me as a blue belt, and both those gyms are out of business. And he said, Saad, it was just like last week, he's like, Saad, you're the only school I've ever been to that doesn't have a mat enforcer. And I thought to myself, that's probably why those other 2 schools are out of business, because they treat their customers like crap. It's like, I'm not doing that to my customers. So the next question is, how do I deal with business competition? I make my school the best I can make it. Like, I try to give my my students not only the best instruction, the best facilities, at the most affordable price that I can. And, you know, I talked in a previous video, you go back, you know, how you set up your spreadsheet, your expenses that will determine the cost you need to pay for tuition. And I know that I provide a great product. If the students find another school in town that they think is better for them, and that's going to happen to you. Like, you're going to have students leave, and they leave. I don't have any hard feelings with them. It's like, sometimes we're just not a good fit for them, or, you know, they want to do things that, like, our school isn't going to get them there because we don't do them. Like, you know, like I was talking to a couple of my black belts last night. It's about, like, oh, an MMA program. I'm like, I don't have an MMA program at my school. I don't train students to be MMA fighters. I'm not going to put a cage up. So sometimes I get people and they're like, hey, I want to be an MMA fighter. It's like, oh, there's other schools in town that will train you for that. There's fighters in town, that have fought in the UFC. It's like they can help you. So your school can't be everything for everybody. As far as the competition, like, I don't pay them any mind because what they do doesn't affect me. It's like, I want to say 8 or 9 months ago, another school opened up maybe 2 miles on the same street as me, down the road. And there was no panic. I wish the dude well. He's out of business already. Like, well, good luck. Business is more complicated than just teaching classes. And that's why I did this whole video series. It's like people think, oh, if you got a black belt, you can just lay some mats down, open up, everything's fine. And it's like, no, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than that. And I hope you get that from this video series. Next question is, are off the mat socials important? And I think they are. Like, they're good team building, whether you're doing picnics. We've done UFC parties or, like parties where we all get together, whether it's like last night, somebody had a birthday, a whole bunch of us, went and we all ate at a restaurant to celebrate this person's birthday. Sometimes we go to different people's houses to watch different events. I think that's great team building. So I would say it's very important, and I would encourage that. Next question is, should you pay for professional marketing and advertising? And that's one of those things that it's like, it's a nice to have, but you have to look at your budget. Can you afford to do it? If you can afford to do it, sure. A professional will be able to do better marketing and advertising than you're going to be able to do as an amateur. That makes sense to me. But if you don't have it in the budget, then you need to figure out how to do it yourself. And one of the ways that I keep the cost lower at my school is I do free marketing like this. And I did a video in our business series. If you look at the business playlist, I'll try to put it in the corner here somewhere towards the end of the video. If you look at that playlist, I talk about marketing and how doing these YouTube videos, maintaining the Instagram page, Facebook, the website. Those are all things that I do myself, that I had to self-teach myself. Some people are like, why do you do those videos? It's like, it's free marketing. YouTube doesn't charge me a dime to do these videos. It's just my time invested, and it's like, there's a good return on the investment because I get students coming in here saying, hey, I watched your videos and I thought it was pretty cool. I'm coming in, I'd like to come in and train with you. It's like, bingo, that's the goal. So my goal for when I created this YouTube channel wasn't to be the next Jake or Logan Paul or Mr. Beast or whatever. It's like, no, that's for those guys that are doing YouTube monetization, and that's great for them. My goal was free marketing in my area, and I never intended my page or my channels to expand outside my geographic area. But when it did, I was like, I'll just keep answering questions. And because a person who has a jiu-jitsu question in Virginia or California or in England or in Australia is the same kind of questions that a person here in San Antonio, Texas would have. So sometimes all the time I realize that, hey, their questions are beneficial to everybody. At the last question that I have this week, is it better to start small and grow out of your first location or go big out the gate? And that's a great question, because I think you should get a decent sized location, but it's got to fit into your budget. What can you afford, and how long can you afford to pay the rent at that location and all the other expenses with no students? Because when you start, you're not going to open up the first day, and then unless you're somebody that's really famous, you're not going to open the school the first day and have 200 people waiting to sign up. It's like, no, you're going to have to do a lot of marketing. You have to do a lot of work, and that's going to determine your budget, and what you have, your financial resources, is going to determine how big of a space can you get? Like you'd love it to be big, man. I would have loved to just rent it out. Like there was this Gold's Gym in town that went out of business, had showers, like huge facility. Man, like, man, this would be great. I think it even had a sauna. I mean, like, man, this would be great. But I couldn't afford it. Like, it was like, well, it'd be great, but I can't afford it. And so you have to make that decision based on your budget. Like what you need, vice what you want. And needs and want is critical. Like, I need to have these things. I'd like to have these other things, but if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. And so like this location, we found it, 8-9 years ago, and we've been here ever since. And so, we've thought about expanding, we thought about, finding a bigger location. But at the end of the day, like, I think the facility is 2,000 square feet. And we're like, you know what? I'm good with this. In the future, maybe we relocate, possibly, but the problem with relocating is if you relocate too far from the location you're currently in, some of your student population is not going to go with you, because maybe, like, I got students that literally walk, to come to class from their homes. Well, if I move 2-3 miles down the road to a bigger facility, that means they're not going to have to drive now. Are they going to drive, or am I going to lose those students? So that's something that you'll have to think about. So I say find a good location, that meets all your needs, and start with that. And, you want enough room to grow, but you don't want it so big that you're going financially broke, waiting, to build up the student base to where you're at least breaking even. And so it may take a while to do that. Oh no, there was one more. So how do I deal with competition from other schools? And it's like, it doesn't faze me. I don't think about what other schools do. I do my thing. And like, I have a great relationship with several schools in town, like GFT San Antonio. Like, we'll go train over there, do team training together. They'll come train over here. I have a great relationship with Rodrigo Pinero in town, and several other schools. And like, that's great. There's people in town who I'm sure don't like me, because when you are successful, not everybody's going to, especially your competition, they're not all going to be thrilled about, they're doing really well down there. Then maybe they say some negative things about you. It's like, okay, it does not faze me at all. So I don't even focus on them. What I did when I opened my location is I did Google Maps. I looked at where all the other schools were in San Antonio, and I just found a space. Like, at the time, I was the only person on the east side of San Antonio. I was like, why is everybody on the west side or the northwest side of San Antonio? But there was nobody teaching over here on the east side. So I was like, this is where we'll go. This is where I bought my house, opened up a school, and I knew I wasn't affecting anybody's business at that time. And since then, other schools have tried to move close to me, and it hasn't worked out for them, but I wish them well. It's like, if they can come and do better than what I'm doing, okay, I ain't mad. All right, I talked longer in this video than I intended on it, but hey, it's all good. Got any business questions, feel free to fire away. Any insights on any of the answers I gave, feel free to share. And until next week, ciao.